My boyfriend vanished, without a trace. 5 years later, I learned the horrifying truth. I always thought love was supposed to be forever. At least, that's what Daniel and I believed. We had been together for almost 2 years, and everything felt right. He was sweet, funny, and we had plans, serious ones. Moving in together, traveling, maybe even marriage down the line. It felt real, solid, until the night he disappeared. It started like any other day. We texted that morning. He sent me a picture of his breakfast, joked about how bad his coffee tasted, and told me he couldn't wait to see me that evening. But when evening came, he never showed up. At first, I wasn't too worried. Maybe he got held up at work, maybe his phone died. But hours passed, and he wasn't answering my calls or texts. That wasn't like him. By midnight, I was pacing my apartment, my stomach twisting with worry. Something was wrong. I called his friends. No one had seen him. I went to his apartment. The lights were off, and no one answered the door. His car wasn't outside. It was as if he had simply vanished. I filed a missing person report the next day. The police said they'd look into it, but I could tell they weren't taking it seriously. Adults disappear all the time, they said. Maybe he just needed a break. But I knew Daniel. He wouldn't have left without telling me. Days turned into weeks, then months, and eventually, years. I grieved him like someone who had died, even though I never got closure. I moved on. At least, I told myself I did. I tried dating again. I got a new job. Life continued. Then, 5 years later, I saw him. It happened so fast that, for a moment, I thought I had imagined it. I was walking down a busy street, lost in my thoughts when I caught a glimpse of someone familiar. The same sharp jawline, the same way he ran a hand through his hair. Daniel. My heart stopped. I turned, barely able to breathe. It was him, but something was wrong. His clothes were different, too clean, too stiff, like they didn't belong to him. His hair was longer, but his face was the same. Except for his eyes. They looked hollow, empty. I forced myself forward, my pulse hammering. Daniel? He froze. His body went rigid before he slowly turned to look at me. And when our eyes met, I saw something I never expected. Fear. He didn't say anything. He just stared at me, as if he was seeing a ghost. Then he took a step back. And another. Then he turned and ran. I didn't think. I just reacted. Daniel, stop, I shouted, pushing past people as I chased after him. He was fast, faster than I remembered, but I wasn't going to let him disappear again. Not this time. He rounded a corner and I followed, only to find the alley empty. It was impossible. He had nowhere to go, no doors, no side exits, just brick walls and shadows. But he was gone. My hands were shaking. My breath came in ragged gasps. I was losing my mind. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with questions. Where had he been? Why did he run from me? And more importantly, who was he running from? The next day, I started digging. Again. I checked old records, missing persons reports. I even went back to the police asking if they had any information about his case. But what I found wasn't what I expected. Daniel wasn't listed as missing anymore. According to public records, he had been declared dead 3 years ago. That wasn't possible. I had seen him. He was alive. I contacted a friend who was good with computers, someone who could look deeper than I could. A few days later, he called me, his voice uneasy. I found something, but you're not going to like it. He sent me a file, one that shouldn't have existed. It was from a classified government database. Daniel's name was there, along with an ID number, a project code. Project Echo. My hands trembled as I read through the document. It didn't make sense. It spoke in vague, cold terms: successful adaptation, reprogramming failure, memory realignment. Then a date, 5 years ago, the exact day Daniel disappeared. I felt sick. What the hell had they done to him? I needed answers. I started tracking down on anyone connected to the project, anyone who might know what had happened to him. That's when I got the first warning. An anonymous email. No subject, no sender, just a single sentence. Stop looking for him. He's not yours anymore. I should have listened, but I didn't. A week later, I saw him again. This time he didn't run. He was waiting for me. In the dead of night, outside my apartment. I opened the door and nearly screamed. He was just standing there, his expression unreadable. Daniel, my voice shook. What's going on? What happened to you? He didn't answer right away. He looked at me, his face conflicted, as if he was trying to remember something. I'm not supposed to talk to you, he finally said. His voice was quieter, flatter. But you are talking to me, I whispered.